Looks like people are starting to join. We just want to welcome everyone to the virtual career fair today here at IRIS, and we'll be joining in just a couple of minutes.
So I think we're going to give just maybe 2 more minutes or so, and then we'll get started here. Does that sound good to you, Dr. Malaire?
Sounds great, Josh.
Awesome, awesome. And yes, welcome those who are already here on time and ready to go. We'll get started here shortly. Well, out of respect for everyone's time, it is 12:03, so I'm going to go ahead and start. And as a reminder to everyone on the call and anyone that's going to be jumping on maybe a little bit later, this will be recorded and sent out to you once we finish up. So anyone that feels like they may have missed something, they'll catch the very beginning where we were just waiting on them in the first place. So I want to welcome you all to the second quarter virtual career fair for us here at IRIS Telehealth. My name is Josh Ryder. I'm one of our clinical hiring managers here at IRIS Telehealth. Dr. Tracy Malaire is on the call with me today to answer, I'm sure, a number of questions you all are going to have, and we'll do a brief intro on her background here shortly. Before we get to her, however, to tell you a little bit about myself, as I mentioned, I'm a clinical hiring manager specifically with our on-demand services and enterprise services here at IRIS Telehealth, and we can talk a little bit later about really what that means. The short of what that means is I talk to providers on a daily basis, sometimes doing virtual career fairs like this, oftentimes in interviews and as we're reviewing scopes of work, a number of things that I do. And I've been here for about 1.5 years, and I've loved every second of it. And I know that Tracy is excited to introduce herself as well, so I will let her do so.
Thanks so much, Josh. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. Tracy Malaire. I am the Medical Director of Ambulatory Services here at IRIS. I've been practicing medicine for about 15 years. I'm a child and adult psychiatrist, and I've been with IRIS for a little bit over 4 years. And I, like you, just started looking into a clinical position at IRIS and started there, and then transitioned into more of an administrative role a bit before the pandemic started. So I've had the opportunity to get to know IRIS as a clinician and then more administratively. So I'm thrilled to be here to represent IRIS and answer any questions that may come up during the course of the presentation. And I'll hand it back to Josh.
Yeah, and absolutely. And as you have questions throughout, feel free to type those into the box where you ask those questions. We will have a question and answer session towards the end where we devote at least 25, sometimes more, minutes to answering those questions. As we know, that's why you're here. You've got questions. But I will kick us off with just really a brief background of who we are at IRIS and what we do and a number of things. So as we get started here, to give you an idea of where IRIS started, if you look to the right of your screen, you're going to see a small yellow house, and that is the house that IRIS was founded in 2013 by Dr. Tariq Shaheen, who was a child and adolescent psychiatrist, who saw a need across the nation for a number of settings. Specifically where we started was on the community mental health centers and federally qualified health centers aspect of the needs of having psychiatrists there, and how could he and his colleagues do that And inside that yellow house, the idea of IRIS came to be that how about we solve this problem of these shortages with telepsychiatry. Now, if you notice the date 2013, I mean, we're looking at a decade ago now. So this is well before the pandemic, which is a big difference between, I would say, IRIS and a number of other really telehealth and telepsychiatry companies that have kind of come to be nowadays, as we were operating before the pandemic, where a lot of the companies that do the same work that we do were somewhat either forced into that or were formed due to the pandemic. So we have a lot of experience in the telepsychiatry realm, and we do, like I said, we do a really good job at it. And I hope that this presentation is going to kind of show you, what our intentions are and why we are able to do and make the impact that we do. Some of the background of when, and this is interesting, I was actually having a conversation with Tariq not too long ago, about a month ago, and I was asking him about why he started IRIS, and a lot of the background information and some of these talking points are still true to this day, where we are still doing what his initial goal of IRIS is, and everything is we think about the patient first. Good medicine. You'll see the dot there. Good medicine is at the heart of everything we do. And we really here at IRIS, we are still owned and operated by psychiatrists. They are at the heart of everything we do. So we really pay attention or make it a point to pay attention to our providers and our clinicians on our teams, because we know that if you are not happy and you are not balanced, then how is the patient going to be getting the what they need from you? One of the biggest things, and this is a huge question that I'm sure some of you may be thinking, or that I get in a lot of my conversations, and I would say early conversations with providers when I'm on the call with them, is what's different about IRIS? Is it a staffing? Are we a medical group? And the answer is we are a medical group. We are not a staffing firm. We are not a locum type staffing firm. We are always looking for long-term positions for providers that join our team and our medical group. And one of the biggest things that we look for in those providers that are going to be joining IRIS as we go through the interview process is that they share really our mission and what we are passionate about doing. It is so important that we align early with that. And we're always so excited when we find those providers early stage that are really aligned with what we want to do and what we are about here at IRIS. And that's really kind of the early phase of how you get started when we start to talk about those early stage interviews. Now, there's only, I guess, a handful of provider types that we technically work with now at IRIS. Obviously, psychiatrists, MDs, and DOs. We do obviously work with PMHMPs, and we're going to talk a little bit further about PMHMPs and what the current needs are for those. And then more recently, I'd say it's still more in the infant stage, but growing rapidly, is LCSWs. And the needs that we have there is growing every day, along with our other needs. But these are the three main types of providers and clinicians that we work with here at IRIS, and on a daily basis, we are seeking out to have conversations with, to ideally find them the right fit within our medical group, and then the right fit with one of our partners. And to give you an idea of, you remember the small yellow house that I showed you, and that was just a couple of providers back in 2013. Fast forward a decade, and here's where we are now. We are at 400 medical providers. It's obviously a mix of all psychiatrists, PMHMPs, and LCSWs that I mentioned. And even when I started, I would say that our partnerships were around 30 to 32, if I remember correctly. And that's just to say that we're consistently and constantly growing month to month, as we have 324 service lines as of today, 39 states. I know that we are really close to 40 and 41 statewide, and that's going to continue to grow, ideally until we're in all 50 states. Our average partnership length with any of our partners is just below 4.5 years. And that has to do with, we're a young company, so that average is going to be a little bit lower, but as we grow in age, that is just going to grow along with that. And one of the biggest things that always comes up in any question I get or any conversation I'm having with a psychiatrist or a PMHMP, specifically in my service line, is are your providers, are your clinicians happy? And we're super proud to say that we have a very high clinician satisfaction. And in turn, you'll see that turns into very, very high patient and partner satisfaction, which is the number one most important thing to us, is making sure that we're taking care of the patients that need to be taken care of in an effective way. In everything that we do and everything that we design here at Iris is to do that, and it starts with you, the provider. Our employee engagement is at 88%, and that's just the poll that we normally take as far as through our providers, how they feel, they engage, and you're going to start to find out about what does it mean to engage with, am I engaging with other providers within my team? Is it support teams? We're going to learn about all of that. But the engagement rating is at 88%, and that's something that we are proud of, but we want to improve on because as we are looking to get better every day, and you're going to see that some of our core values will reflect that. And I know that that's something that Dr. Malaire will speak to later. As you have those questions again, feel free to start to kind of write those down, and we'll be answering those here a little bit later. Now, when we start to talk about really what our, I guess from a macro point of view, what our scope of work is, it's strictly behavioral health. There is nothing outside of that. Again, you're seeing the clinician satisfaction rates, which were in turn turns into very satisfied patients and partners. And we're proud of that. And that again is our number one goal at all times, to make sure that we can keep those numbers high. And as we all know, in recent times, there's a lot of challenges with that when it comes to telehealth in general, specifically in telepsychiatry. We just continue to work to keep those numbers where they're at. And you will see quotes like the one on your screen. And you know, we always encourage people to go look at any of our reviews and see some of the quotes from our providers that have enjoyed the time working, you know, with us and for us. Ideally, you know, they haven't moved on. We have a really high retention rate as well. A lot of people that have made the move to telepsychiatry, even if it's full-time or part-time, have loved it and have stayed, and it's what works for them. And we're going to be getting into, you know, what those pluses are. You know, why would I want to come to Iris, or what can you guys offer that maybe someone else does not, here shortly. And that's actually right here. So there is, and this is always a huge talking point for me in early conversations as well, with any provider that's looking at Iris as a potential, you know, medical group for them. And there is a number of reasons why we always like to kind of set ourselves aside from other companies that are very much like us. One is that I've already mentioned. We are psychiatrist led, and again, the short of that is that we constantly know the challenges that you would be going through in a role like this, and the learning curves, and what we can do to make that easier and support you through that. And all our decisions are going to be with our providers in mind, and how does it make your life and your situation better to treat said patients that you were seeing at that time. There is obviously the benefits aspect, and there's a number of different ways that you can go with Iris when it comes to full-time, when it comes to part-time. We have definitions of what that is. Obviously, there's a certain amount of hours that you would be required to work to get to full-time. Usually that is anything that is over 30 hours per week. You would be eligible for benefits. Those are obviously medical, dental, vision, 401k, PTO. There is a number of perks that come along with being in the Iris medical group, and all your technology is taken care of. We send you everything that you're going to need: laptops, screens, headsets. Our IT team is 24/7 alongside not just the IT team, but our clinical operations management team that we'll learn about here in a little bit. But I would say, if I was being honest, the main thing that I get either asked about or comes up in early conversations is the work-life balance aspect. And that's what providers are so often looking for. They're looking for somewhat of a change. Depending on the setting that they're working in, a lot of times it ends up being maybe it's the commute that is very painful for them. And they're missing out on time with family or friends. And everyone's got a little bit different motivation, but so often they're very similar, and they're very rooted back to, I'm looking for that work-life balance. And that is something that we obviously offer here. And there, like I said, there's part-time roles, there's full-time roles. You can be very heavy full-time, 40 or more per hour, or hours per week, I should say, or you can be, again, back towards that part-time, whatever fits what you're looking for. And that's part of our early conversation process that we'll also learn about. when you were first talking to some of our clinical talent consultants, which is another word for our recruiters, when they are finding out what makes the most sense for you, because that is the most important aspect of what we do here at Iris, is finding that right fit for you with our partners. I'd say that's probably the number one thing that in any conversation we do, we're making sure that we are going to have that fit for you for that long-term placement with you, our partners, and those patients at those sites. So there are a number of different types of opportunities here at Iris. This is one that is near and dear to my heart. This is where I work all day, every day, all week, is in the acute care space, and it is for both adult and pediatric. This would be more concerning the on-demand services line, again, that I work in, and really the easiest way to explain what that is. It's based around consult liaison work. It's both from a med-surg type floor situation as well as the emergency department. And the way that that really works is we build teams, or what we call care pods. And what these care pods do is they respond to different enterprise partners of ours, depending on their consult capacity, where they need the consult seen, whether, again, it's the emergency department or elsewhere. And you are constantly bouncing around to these different facilities throughout a day shift. Maybe you're one of the nocturnist type and you're doing it through the night, but it is a constant moving around, which is super challenging, but also super rewarding for a lot of our providers within this service line. They get to make a massive impact, not only potentially in their local community that you're used to or around where you live. This is across the United States. We're in 39 states, and these enterprise partners are across those states as well. So, for example, you may be responding to an ED consult up in New York City. The next one's in, let's say rural Missouri, and then the next one is in rural Tennessee, and then you're all the way over to Washington. It's really, really exciting work to be done there. And there's a lot of support that goes in behind that type of role, which is so important. You wouldn't be able to do we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And if you were to join the team, you wouldn't be able to do what you can do, see the amount of patients you can see without the help of our Iris telehealth care coordinators, who are the lifeblood of our operations, that make sure that everything operates smoothly, to make sure that you are going from consult to consult in an effective way that is quick and efficient, but not rushed, not a over-the-top volume where you feel overwhelmed. It is a very delicate balance that we operate in the acute care space. And it's just one of our many, many great opportunities. And obviously with Dr. Malaire on the call, this is more of her area, the ambulatory care area. And it's very similar from a standpoint of, again, part of the medical group. You have a clinical operations team member. Often it's a manager that's working alongside you. And the difference with this normally is that you are within one site, opposed to bouncing around to a number of different sites within a care pod. You are a dedicated provider with one of our partners, usually in a community mental health center or a federally qualified health center, where you are working not only with our team and our medical group and our clinical operations managers on a daily basis, you're also working with the team on the ground at that clinic. And so there's a number of steps that we go through to make sure that what you're looking for aligns exactly with what you're looking for and the partner is looking for. Now, there is not always going to be a perfect match. We are trying to get to a point where we find what makes the most sense for you from what our conversations and our interviews with you, where we feel you're passionate and you're going to do your best work. That's where we want to put you. And that's from the clinical hiring side. And then from there on out, the operations team is hand in hand with you, making sure that experience goes smoothly as somewhat of a liaison, again, part of the Iris medical group, but also with that team physically on the ground. You're obviously coming in from a telepsychiatry standpoint. Those were for the longest time the two main service lines that we have here at Iris. We constantly have opportunities with these roles either coming up, currently open, and we'll get to kind of that at the end where some of our most urgent needs are. But we also have one of our new, this is a brand new care model of ours, one of our new service lines. And this is also adult and pediatric. And it is our bridge care services. And really the easiest way to understand what bridge care is you are helping patients transition from crisis to stabilization. And that's just bridging the ED, the acute inpatient, and even the inpatient psychiatric to kind of the more managed outpatients until that provider gets back to their PCP. And again, we've had a lot of success early with this. We've got a number of our partners that have been super happy with us that we are now expanding. And you're going to see from a standpoint of what types of clinicians and providers are needed for this type of service line. LCSWs are one of the big reasons that we are able to do this, and that is one of our biggest needs here coming up that we'll talk about. Beyond this conversation, beyond this career fair, we will have links to have further conversations. If you're interested in any of these care lines, we get you connected with a CTC, one of our clinical talent consultants, to have these conversations to see where you fit best. A lot of times when I'm having conversations with a provider specifically about acute care, they will hear about the other service lines and they want to learn about those as well, because there's just so much that you can do here. And we're just excited to share those opportunities with you, of course. Now, if we were to highlight what our key opportunities are now, and these are more of our right now urgent, this is what we were actively interviewing for, specifically New Hampshire licensed LCSWs, New Hampshire licensed psychiatrists, and right now it's specifically a part-time role that would fall inside the bridge care services. We are always looking for child and adolescent LCSWs, and you'll see notes in here as far as, Central Standard Time schedule. That's one of the really fantastic things about IRIS is, let's say you live on the East Coast and you're open to that Central Standard Time. If the position doesn't already require, for example, the New Hampshire license, we always license our providers. It's part of our onboarding process at no cost to you. So if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, you're like, hey, I'm okay to work Central Standard Time, we can put you in those positions with our licensing. Our med staff services team will license and credential you so you can do so. So you're never just limited to your home state or states around you. You can work nationwide, as I mentioned. We're always looking for more Arizona licensed LCSWs. That is a pain point of ours as far as the needs are there, and we're constantly bringing in more and more. So that is something we're always going to be actively interviewing. And then always psychiatrists. We always want to hear from you. We want to know what you're looking for. Specifically, if you're Spanish speaking, that is a high demand. I know that Tracy would speak to that later on. That is just such a big plus for us and allowing us to really help our patients in need is that Spanish speaking aspect. Now, you'll notice that the PMHMP's list is not here right now, and there is somewhat of a wait list or a bench of what we have currently with our current bench of PMHMPs. We will still actively interview PMHMPs. Those opportunities right now are just a little bit lower in this quarter. And the reason I say in this quarter is things change on a daily basis. And we may have a lot of openings come up, and then we will be posting those again. Regardless, we're always very happy to still speak with you if you were to apply, to give you more of that information, to really find out what you would be looking for, so we have that in mind should those opportunities come available. Now, like most things, like any job you look at, there's going to be requirements. And this is a quick rundown of the different types of requirements that we look at when we're looking at PMHNPs, MDDOs, and LCSWs, what our kind of minimum requirements are. And if you fall in line with those, which I know many of you do, we would love to hear from you. We would love to talk to you, regardless of what role you would be looking for. Sometimes we uncover something that you didn't even know you're looking for and it ends up being the best fit. So absolutely, once we finish up, we will have a follow-up aspect to this career fair where we will be reaching out to you to start to set up those calls should you be interested. Now, this is one thing that is, when I first joined IRIS, was one of the biggest selling points to me. And it was our core values. And you're going to see that some of them might sound a little goofy initially, or the different ways to look at it, but they all have a very important meaning. And this really goes back, again, to the conversation I had with Tariq not that long ago. When he explained, I asked him, when it comes to the core values, what made you think of these? Because they've been the same ever since. And when we start, people above all else, and he mentioned to me, this can mean so many different things. But really what it comes down to is valuing people and valuing relationships and treating people as people. Again, this starts with our providers. We know that you have to be happy and comfortable in your role to do good work. We want you to feel good about what you do and who you work for. But that transfers to our patients through you and treating people as people, and not so much a business. It's just very, very important to us. You know, you'll see the words highlighted that we talk about regularly, you know, integrity, respect, you know, doing the right thing, even when the right thing is hard. That is something that we really, really value. And that's from you know, a corporate background all the way through our providers. We really try to live the people overall else every day. And sometimes it's difficult. We've all been there, but it's something that we strive and try to be better at every day. And a lot of these will continue to kind of bleed into one another. And another one of ours is suck less every day. And it kind of sounds funny, or it kind of sounds like, well, is that a little off-putting? Really, what we use the acronym SLED a lot. And it just means that find ways to be better every day that you can. And we know that there's going to be tough days. There's going to be days that, quote unquote, might suck. But we are going to work to make sure that we are going to sled through these difficult times to be better towards excellence, to be the best medical group we can be, to be the best telepsychiatry company we can be. And like the others, it's not always easy. But we know that when we bring people on, that everyone has that greatness within that we want to unlock. And then we want to continually improve on that greatness that we know that everyone has, that everyone joins our team. Now, execution is queen and king, and there's a lot of different ways that you can understand this one. It's pretty straightforward, but we want to accomplish real results. We want to make sure we are truly helping our patients. We are truly creating a fantastic work environment for our providers, and that when we do that, and we say that we are going to do that, we do it. And it allows you to execute at your highest level, whether it be, again, in the acute setting, the ambulatory setting, the bridge care, anything that we do, we want you to execute at the highest level and bring your best self forward each and every day. Now, this is one that I really like, because this is, in any company, everything, it's all about timing and moving quickly. And with providers, as you know, it's about moving quickly. When we have a provider that we know that we want on the team, we have to move quickly to make sure that they join our team. It bleeds through everything we do. You know, we want results quickly, but never so quick that we skip things or we slacken areas or we cut corners, because in the end, it's going to come back and bite us. And so we put that from corporate all the way through our providers. So when you are seeing patients, you are quick at where you're able to be quick, but we're not cutting corners, and that the quality of care is at a very, very high level. And you know that I mentioned clinical operations management teams and your Iris telehealth care coordinators. They are there to help you be and do all these things as a provider, specifically being quick, but not hurrying, and maybe not being as detailed with some of our patients, or not taking the time needed. And we have protections against that as far as when it comes to appointment times, a number of things that we would obviously get into the weeds of in a full interview aspect. But this is a very, very important core value for us, and it's why we're at where we are at. And finally, love your work, live your work. And that's just as easy as love what you do. I've been in the medical field for a long time. I spent many years in locums work, and I had a passion for mental health and helping. I'm obviously not a provider or clinician, but I know what I can do is find the right ones to join a team that I'm on. And I love that. And I try to live that every day. And that doesn't mean that every day you're going to feel that way. We've all been there, but we know that specifically when you're putting your heart and soul into something, and it truly means something to you, that you're going to do a great job. So we try to bring all of these core values into each and every, not only provider or clinical aspect of what we do, but also our corporate teams here. So we have that unison, we have that teamwork throughout. And so now you've heard plenty from me. And I want to open it up to Dr. Tracy Miller, who was fantastic, and like you heard, been with us for some time now, for some question and answers. I know that if anyone has sent over some questions, we are now going to start to answer those, I believe. Correct, Dr. Miller?
Correct, absolutely. And I can start with one question I got from clinicians very frequently, is kind of what led me to Iris and has kept me at Iris. And I can speak a little bit to that. I like many of you, was at a crossroads and was looking for an improved quality of life and just started to look at different options. Um, I can tell you my first conversation or my interview with Iris was with our now CMO, Dr. Tom Milam. And the conversation with him and with everyone else I had at Iris, it was evident that emphasis on quality care and that there was a shared passion for patient care with everyone I spoke with. Iris back then was getting its first round of Joint Commission accreditation, which also spoke volumes to me about the emphasis and effort towards quality care. And I started in a clinical position in an adolescent residential center in Baltimore, which I loved. That was my clinical experience, and clinical hiring, as Josh said, was amazing. And in asking me my preferences and passions, and found an excellent fit for me. And my transition administratively with Iris has only reinforced how everyone in the organization shares that passion for what we do, which is, access to high quality care and bringing providers to the right positions to continue to help that happen. So I can say it's been a great experience that I've had at Iris. And again, happy to answer any questions that you have. And let's see, looking through some of the questions here. Does the Bridge Care program have some nurse practitioner positions? And Josh, I don't know if you want to take that one, and I can talk about Bridge Care as well.
Yeah. So we will have some roles within Bridge Care. We do foresee, as of right now, no, but as we grow and expand, we expect to potentially have those in specific states, of course. So that's kind of a yes and no. Right away, no. Future, yes.
Yeah, and Bridge Care, as Josh was saying, is an exciting newer product that we have, because over the years, trying to address that gap where patients are either on an outpatient wait list waiting for a provider coming out of the hospital and have several months to wait to meet with a clinician. Our partners repeatedly would say, how do we help with this access to care issue? So we've been really excited to start that Bridge Care program to help. And I know it's exciting for providers to think about, having approximately 90 days to work with the patient and help them stabilize and get to the next step in their behavioral health care, whether that's a longitudinal care provider or back to their primary care physician, depending on what their needs are. So I know the Bridge Care is really, really exciting, and we're excited about it here at Iris.
Yeah, it really are. And it's one of those interesting stories where we are constantly listening to feedback from our partners and expanding services. And that's how Bridge Care first started. It was a conversation with a partner saying, hey, this is a need of ours. Is this something you guys offer or have ever thought about? And we thought about it and said, I think we can do this. And so we started it with a specific partner with a lot of success. And now we've grown it into other enterprise partners. And that's how we operate. We're looking to be on the forefront of everything we can. And we're, be quick, but don't hurry. That was part of that process. So great question. I do see a second question asking about part-time LCSW positions. Right now, the vast majority, yes, they are full-time. It's always a possibility. A lot of the times our needs within our partners across the United States are often specific for the LCSWs full-time. But I would say, even if you're interested in a part-time role, that it's always worth a conversation, because again, things change and we may have a need pop up that is part-time, or you may find out that, hey, maybe I could make 30 hours work or what have you. And those options end up being there for you that you didn't think were there in the first place. So great question when it comes to that. I'm gonna look through a few more of these. Now, I've seen a number of these come through, Tracy, and I want to give you some more time to answer, but I'll answer this one up front because I've seen it 3 times. The onboarding, licensing, and credentialing process, what does that look like? And that's a loaded question because it really depends on which service line you land with. And I'll kind of give you 2 scenarios here as briefly as I can. From an ambulatory or more of a scheduled services side of things, when you are going to one location, one specific facility, or what have you, those can often be pretty quick. Let's say you have to get a license. Depending on the state, it may be, 60 to 90 days to get that license, and you have a smaller or similar credentialing period. So it can be quick as some scenarios, depending, especially if you have the license already in that specific state, it could be a month. Sometimes it could be 2 to 3 months. And that would be something that throughout the process, as we're finding that fit for you, you will be in the know of how long this will take. And if you were to make that move with respect to your current notice, we line those things up pretty efficiently. Now, when it comes to the acute care services, when we start to talk about the on-demand services, that's a different story. Often you're being licensed and credentialed in anywhere from 5 to 8 states, in anywhere from 5 to 10 facilities. And that can take a little longer. That can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months. I've seen it done quicker. It depends on how many licenses you already have, but that's a realistic expectation when those roles come open. And we do foresee from the acute care side of things, our most recent cohort is going live in an implementation, here shortly. We expect Q1 of 2024 kind of be the next, hiring phase for that specific service line, but we're always having conversations even before then. So don't let that deter you if you're interested.
And I can answer, there's a question about asking about administrative or on-call opportunities. And I can start with the on-call opportunities. And for the traditional outpatient clinical setting, there's no expectation of on-call for providers, and many of our providers ask that and are seeking that for quality of life measures. We're really careful with each opportunity to understand the schedule, to have it really set in stone before a provider starts to work, because we know that providers, some are working part-time and have other responsibilities, or you're just tending to your life, and we want to respect that time. So there's no required call per se in a traditional outpatient opportunity. We do have different levels of care, such as inpatient care, which may have some on-call opportunity, particularly for psychiatrists or prescribers. But that, again, is something that we really check in with you about preferences during the clinical hiring and interview phase to make sure we really understand what you're looking for time-wise. And that's true, too, about administrative opportunities, folks that come by that have administrative experience and want to continue that professional growth. We definitely want to know about that and ask about that. We have some providers, prescribers that take on medical director positions within their facility. Some do nurse practitioner supervision. So there are different administrative roles that do come up with clinical opportunities that we love to hear, again, what preferences are. I had an interview with someone a few months ago, and we were talking about, what they really like to do and what their optimal position would be. And they said, I've been so busy, and, in my job, it's been so long since someone's asked me like what my preferences are, that they really had to think about it, because we really want to know, what you enjoy most, so that we can really be thinking about what would be a great fit for you.
Yeah, and I would second that. That's a really big aspect to the interview process with us. Finding what your ideal situation is super important to us. We're talking patient population, schedule, you name it. We try to find out what's going to make you tick and make you the most efficient provider you can be, and happy provider as well. And like I said, there's not always going to be that perfect fit, but you may be able to tick 8 of the 10 boxes, and you're like, hey, that's better than that. That works for me. So that's why those conversations are honest and very straightforward, to make sure that we're building that proper profile for you. So when we do come with opportunities with our partners that are obviously partner with us, that we're not wasting your time. If you're not interested in call, and I approach you about a job that is going to require a call, that doesn't make sense. We like to avoid those situations. So very, very important process. There's 3 or 4 step process through our interview as a whole, I would say, to really nail that down, even before meeting with some of our partners. A question I did see, let me see if I can find it, because it was a really good question. Where did it go? Oh yeah, here it is. Can I speak to an Iris clinician and learn more about what it's like to work there? This is a great question. And oftentimes in kind of late stage interviews, when I'm, maybe we've gone over a scope of work with one of a prospective provider looking to join, that's often a question. And they're almost kind of apologizing when they ask, like, hey, is it possible to maybe speak with someone? And absolutely, that is something that we encourage. We have a number of providers that have been with us for a while, and those that have not been with us that long that are always open to having those conversations. And I think it's a great process as you're deciding, is Iris right for me, is to hear from someone that's been with us either a while or not so long. That's absolutely something that we do outside of the leadership interviews of Dr. Malaire that's on this call, who you'd be speaking with potentially. We are more than happy to set those up. We want to make sure it's always the right fit in every aspect that we can. I saw another question come through that I can kind of answer. I hate giving half answers, but if you work full-time as an LCSW, how many hours per week involve providing counseling or direct services? And that's a loaded question because it kind of depends on where you end up fitting best. They're all going to look a little bit different. They're all not the same exact role. So that's a really good question, but without me really diving into very specific roles, like we're on an intro call or even a scope of work call, it's kind of difficult to really nail down what that looks like day to day for every position. And I would say that kind of reflects somewhat even into the other roles, which is nice because, again, it gives you options to align with what makes the most sense. So great question.
And I can speak a little too. They asked, what are the kind of organizations Iris works with and the patient population? And I know, Josh, you talked about some of that. And we have a lot of, as Josh was saying, outpatient settings. We have child providers, adult providers. We partner with community mental health centers, FQHCs, hospital-based systems. We have residential centers, inpatient centers. We have the on-demand service and now bridge care. So there are different levels of care and types of care, different age groups. And that's why we hone on those preferences when we're speaking with providers, so we can really ascertain the best clinical fit, because our clinical partners are coming to us wanting a long-term fit, and that's the expectation that they're fully embedding our clinicians into the day-to-day as if they're on the ground, that our Iris providers are considered a full member of the team. You're there remotely, but you are still, as integral to their day-to-day as a provider that's on the ground. And that's what we're looking for, because we really do consider ourselves a medical group, not a placement company or a locums company. We're really looking for that good long-term connection, which is why we ask so many questions during the hiring process to get at what population you most like to work with. Yeah.
And again, just super, super important. And this last question that I see that I think that is super important is, I kind of mentioned what the onboarding process timeline looks like. This is more kind of asking around the interview process. What does that entail and the duration between interview and hiring? And there is no really one set length of time that it takes. A lot of times we'll have an intro interview with you. Usually it's with a CTC or a senior CTC, which is an acronym for our recruiters. Usually one to two interviews, video interviews. Very often you'll then interact with a clinical hiring manager like myself, depending on the service line that you're most interested in, that we think is the right fit. And then depending from there on the service line too, you will be meeting with the on-site clinic leadership that Dr. Malaire was just referring to make sure that seems like a fit for you, and vice versa. So that can be done as quick as anywhere from I'd say it's 35 to 40 days total. That would be a quickly moving process. Other times that we have these interview processes, and you may even interview with medical leadership, and then we're just waiting on that right opportunity for you that makes the most sense, where you're going to make the most impact for that long-term fit. And sometimes it may be 2 to 3 months in between finding that fit. there's a whole process that's very, very, I know we keep talking about it, but just it's very involved making sure we find that fit. And it's not always immediate. Sometimes it takes a little bit, or something new coming up and you're technically on what we would call the bench, and we would then contact you and say, hey, we have this opportunity. We know it would be of great interest to you. Is this how you would like to, is this the direction you would want to go? So another kind of loaded question, or I guess more of a loaded answer, I should say, but it can kind of vary as well. We usually shoot for between, I'd say, 30 to 40 days when we know we really have someone in a fit and a position that makes the most sense for them.
Yeah, and I can say, having gone through the process, how much I appreciated the conversations with clinical hiring, asking the right questions to make sure the stars aligned to come up with a position that was fabulous for a fit for me. And I cannot say enough about our medical credentialing as a provider, how much I appreciated their support, because I did not have a license in the state where this fabulous position appeared. And I remember asking, I said, you're going to help me with this and absorb the cost, but I don't have the job yet. But because there's been so much research done in clinical hiring, knew my preferences, and Iris knew the position so well that they felt so confident it would work out, and it did, and they got the ball rolling with credentialing. And it's just such a fabulous resource at Iris, that our medical credentialing, I just can't say enough about how helpful they are in getting that position established.
Yeah, I second that. They are very, very good at what they do, and tell you that's just another lifeblood of Iris and what we do to get people licensed and credentialed on time, to get them seeing patients, which is what we know the provider wants to do, is what we want to do. And they're just very, very good at what they do. So this most recent question that came in, I'll let you also cover, Dr. Miller. I think you'd be best too.
Sure, absolutely. It came up, which we get a lot, the Ryan-Haidt Act and implications and how we work with that. And I can say that in the 10 years that Iris has been operating, there's never been an issue with a provider prescribing or providing care, including controlled substances. And again, with our fabulous credentialing department, we've always made sure that the provider has licensure in the state where the patient is being seen, and that the DEA is linked to that clinic, so that we make sure that everything is aligned. And I know Ryan-Haidt, the intentions was to create that central registry of telehealth providers. That never came to be. And again, I know that spotlight was put on this as the pandemic was ending and the public health emergency ending. I know with the omnibus bill, there's been an extension of all telehealth approvals and regulations. And that's something we continue to monitor, because I know the question of the proposed changes for having in-person yearly visits for folks on stimulants came up. And again, there has been an extension on that. Iris is very active and aware of the regulations with the DEA. And we keep our providers informed. When the public health emergency was coming to a close, and this was a question, I know Dr. Milam, our CMO, sent all our providers emails updating them on regulations and changes as we learned of them. And it's another benefit of Iris that you have our full support in parallel with your clinic for anything that comes up, any concerns about regulations, telepsychiatry, IT, you name it. There's just another level of support that you have. I know pre-pandemic, we were all very aware that if someone was new to come to Iris and hadn't done a lot of telepsychiatry, we wanted to make sure they didn't feel isolated at all, right? You can't go and knock on your colleague's door like you can with in-person work. And so we're always been very aware to foster conversation and support. I know during the pandemic, everyone, including patients across the country, really were forced to get experience with telehealth and how to work remotely and live remotely. But we really do foster that connection and support. We do grand rounds and case conferences, and there's an Iris newsletter, and they're just opportunities if providers want to take advantage of them, because we just want to make sure we're communicating and making sure we're answering any questions that our providers have at any time. And I know I have an open door policy, as does Dr. Tom Milam, our CMO, and our medical group, to just make sure that providers always have what they need, or if they have a question, that they also have us. Many of them, you go to your clinical setting and the folks there, but we're always another level of support for folks.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we want to answer more questions if they're out there. So if anyone has any other questions that they maybe just come up now, feel free to ask. And then if not, we'll kind of wrap up here with a few more slides and let you all go for the day. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and finish out the last few slides here. Oh, too many clicks. So we have what we call the Behavioral Health Messenger, and this is something that you'll receive a link to. It's really a newsletter in the follow-up to this career fair. And there's a number of things that are inside it. Even if you're not going to be jumping at, hey, I want to interview with Iris, or I want to apply with Iris, this is just something to help you kind of just keep your hands on the pulse of what's going on here, and just kind of keep you connected with what we do from a month-to-month basis. And it's just that touch point, really. And if you are interested in applying, these are, again, this slide deck's coming to you. So use this link that you see here. You can email that email address there, again, with your CV, and in the subject line, of course, put the career fair interest. Also, you can apply directly to any of the positions online, and those come directly to my team, and we start those conversations that way. So we're about 7 minutes left, so we're a little quick, but I don't think we have any more questions. I want to be respectful, again, of everyone's time. We so appreciate you guys coming in and listening to us talk and asking some great questions. We're always happy to answer more. Should you have them, feel free to reach out to us and send any questions as part of this as well. But I think that we'll wrap it up there. Okay, Dr. Malaire?
Sounds great. I think everyone for joining, and absolutely, as questions arise, please reach out. I agree with Josh.
Awesome. Well, everyone have a fantastic day.